Well, here we are. It is time to review the string family of instruments in the orchestra. Back in November and December, we talked about string instruments, and every instrument of the week was in the string family, uh, the violin and viola, and all of those instruments that have strings. So we're going to talk about them real quick and review them, and then I've got a couple of activities for you this week. First of all, we talked about the violin and the viola and how they are so similar. The only difference is the viola is a little bit bigger than the violin. And of course, we know that if an instrument is bigger, that means it has a lower pitch. And if an instrument is smaller, that means it has a higher pitch, right? So these two instruments usually sit together in the orchestra. They sound very similar, but if you play them together, you can tell a little bit of a difference because of the size. So there's the violin and viola. Another string instrument in the orchestra is the cello. And a cello is bigger than the violin and viola. You can't hold it under your neck, like under your chin, like you do with the others. You have to sit with it in front of you, and you run the bow along the front of those strings. And then you move your fingers along here. And we'll talk about that in just a minute when we look at some other instruments. The biggest of the main four string instruments in the orchestra is the double bass. And of course, the double bass works a lot like the cello. It's just a lot bigger. And since it's bigger, the pitch is, you guessed it, lower. That's right. The bigger it is, the lower it is. The double bass is so big that you have to stand up usually behind it, or at least sit on a tall stool to be able to play it. And if you'll recall, we watched a video with the guy playing the Darth Vader theme song from Star Wars on the bass. Let's see. There's another instrument that's very common in the orchestra. It's not always there. It's only there if the song that the orchestra is playing needs it, but that's the harp. Now, the harp works differently than the others because there's no bow. You don't run the bow across the front. It's a very, very large instrument, and you actually sit behind it. You'll sit over here, and you lean it back onto your shoulder, and then you run your fingers along the strings like this. There we go. This is sometimes hard to do. You run your fingers along the strings like this, and that's what makes the sound. There is no bow in the harp. You'll notice at the bottom we have some pedals. They change the sound. They do different things to the strings. But that's the harp. It's not always part of the orchestra, but sometimes it is. Now, another instrument that is often a part of the orchestra that we sometimes think is a string instrument is the piano. And that's because it has strings. But we don't classify the piano as a string instrument. We put it in the percussion family. And that's because there are hammers that hit the string. And so even though the piano has strings, we don't call it a string instrument. But anyway, so there are a few of the orchestral string instruments. Now, there are many, many, many string instruments out there in the world. And I have a couple of them here that are not usually a part of the orchestra. This mini guitar-looking thing is actually a ukulele. And a ukulele works a lot like a guitar. You pluck the strings, and you push down on the different frets. And when you push down different frets, it changes what note you're playing. And if you play more than one string at a time, then you get chords. And I didn't tune this ukulele, so it doesn't sound great, but you get the idea. Another instrument that I have, by the way, I've been learning to play the ukulele over this extended time at home. And so when I come back to school, when we all come back together in August, we'll be able to play the ukulele together. Of course, we all know what this is, the acoustic guitar. And we've talked about how it is an instrument that, of course, has strings. And you can play the same way you play the ukulele. And you just press down the different frets on the fretboard. And if you put them together, then you can play different chords and different songs. So guitars and ukuleles work very similarly. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the violin, viola, cello, they also have that neck where if you push down the strings in different spots, you get different notes. The difference is violins, violas, cellos, they don't have these little bars here. These are called frets. They don't have those. You just have to know where to put your fingers, which makes it a little more of a challenge to play. But those are some stringed instruments. Now, this week in your string instrument lesson, I'd like you to go to sfskids.org, and the link to that website is on on this video here. So you can click on that, and then just like last week, if you click on, now I can't remember where you're supposed to click. I've totally blanked on that. But there's, perform. There we go. I knew it started with a P. Perform. Click on that, and then you'll see different instruments that you can listen to and play along with, and you'll be able to explore the string instruments there. Also, as an added activity, if you're interested in doing this, you can go to the links that I have here on this YouTube video, and one of them will teach you how to make your own guitar using a cereal box, rubber bands, and Scotch tape. And you'll need a pair of scissors as well. So with those 4 items, you can make your own guitar. So check out that video, and you could do that sometime this week if you have those supplies at your house. And would love to see a video or a picture of you making that guitar, playing a little bit, exploring how to change the notes by plucking the rubber bands. So if you want to send me something, I'd love to watch it. So enjoy your week exploring the string family, and let me know how things are going. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Bye-bye.